have with us a returning patient, actually people that we met last year, the family of Hailey Simpson. And your story really is unique in that you guys were living close to one of the country's, I guess, most loved children's hospital. In fact, we used to work a lot with St. Jude before we focused on Riley. And you found yourself kind of in a surprising position after moving to India, right? Hailey?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
Were you tempted to go back to Memphis?
Absolutely. We'd only been here for just a couple of months. A company had relocated us here. And Hailey was diagnosed with ALL leukemia at the age of 6. It was the day before she started first grade, as a matter of fact. And we came here, and we'd heard wonderful things about Riley, but still we're a little out of our element, being both all from Tennessee and being very familiar with St. Jude. I called St. Jude from Riley. I was actually here, called from the waiting room and said, my daughter's just been diagnosed with ALL leukemia. I want to bring her to St. Jude. Tell me what I need to do. And the cancer counselor on the other end of the line said, well, where are you currently? And I said, well, we're at Riley. She said, in Indianapolis. And I said, yes. She said, well, you do realize you're at one of the best institutions in the country, don't you? And I said, well, I'd heard that from a few locals, but, your opinion bears a lot more weight. She said, well, I've been doing this job for 20 years. And she said, we work hand in hand with the doctors at Riley. Our doctors and their doctors communicate on a daily basis. And she said, everyone I've ever met there is just fantastic. She said, I'm not discouraging you from coming to St. Jude by any means. But if you're interested, I will make the arrangements. And I said, well, give me a couple of days. I'll get back to you. Well, I never made that call. Within a couple of days, I realized what an incredible place Riley was. And that if I wanted the best medical professional care for my daughter, that I was at the right place at the right time for a reason. So it was very, very blessed and thankful that I was able to be here, and I sincerely believe it was much more than a coincidence. She started out her treatment with 810 rounds of chemo, oral chemo, plus an additional 106 rounds to a port in her chest. She had 9 spinal taps, chemo to the spine, plus bone marrow testings, where they go into the hip bone and actually extract the marrow. But just kind of put in perspective of how an incredible place Riley is. On outpatient chemo, we came in every week, every Thursday. We were in here in and out within a couple hours. But the day she had to have spinal tap, we were here a minimum 3 hours, if not a little longer. She actually got excited about the days that she was going to have a spinal tap because she got to spend more time with the nurses and doctors at Riley.
Wow.
And that should speak volumes to people of the quality of the staff that you have here. It's just that kind of place that children fall in love with. They walk through the doors and they have a smile on their face. I've got a lot of friends I enjoy spending time with, but none I'm willing to take a spinal tap to hang out with.
Hailey, do you remember that? You were, 6 years old at the time? And now how old are you?
I am 10. I kind of remember it. I remember my dad waking me up when I was starving because I can't have breakfast before that. And I can't drink before it. And I remember Dad would always go to McDonald's for me.
Down here in the cafeteria. Oh. What else is your favorite thing about this hospital? What was something that you look forward to doing when you could get out of bed?
The magic castle. It comes around the floors and it has toys in it. And then they stop by. It's like this big, huge cardboard castle. There's stuff in the
Magic castle. Sounds like fun to me.
The thing is, those little activities that most people, think, every kid would love a little teddy bear, but they really, it's more of a ministry. They come in and actually minister to the child and to the family because you're in such a traumatic situation. They do things that I couldn't do. One of the most phenomenal times I experienced here was at one particular time from the chemotherapy, she had ulcerated sores throughout her mouth, her entire digestive tract, all the way out her bottom. to the point where she could barely swallow cheese dip off of a tortilla. Just the pain of swallowing. She was on a morphine drip with an additional morphine button, and they were shooting Ativan, giving her Ativan to try to everything they could do, throwing everything they could at the pain. At that time, she was squeezing my fingertips, a 6-year-old, to the tips of my fingers were blue, on morphine, on all of this. I was standing beside the bed, praying, doing anything, everything I could to try to take away this pain. And she's looking up at me with those puppy dog eyes and not understanding why Daddy, Big Daddy here, can't fix this problem. You know, why am I allowing her, it's the way she looked at, to be in so much pain. I would have done anything in the world. I offered everything I had, but I couldn't take it away. One of the nurses came in with a little activity, and she's, hey, big smile on her face, came into the room, and I'm turned around with tears in my eyes and almost an anger of why my child has to go through this. And she said, I've got a little activity here. Do you think Hailey would like it? I just looked at her like, just a growl probably. And Hailey spoke up and said, what is it, Daddy? And she didn't even open her eyes. And the nurse said, well, it's a little purse, and you can decorate it all your own way. And she said, Daddy, I would like that. And she released, I felt blood coming back into my fingertips, and I stepped back, and the nurse stepped in, and she handed her this little purse, and it distracted her from the pain. It made her forget about the pain for a few minutes, which was exactly the prayer that I was praying. Just take that pain away for a few minutes. And she did that. Didn't learn that in medical school. It's a ministry.
They just seem to know exactly not just what the patient needs here, but also what the family needs as well.
Absolutely. That's the kind of place that we're at right now. For every story that you hear, you just need to know that there are thousands upon thousands of children that are affected and treated here daily in the most positive way that could ever happen in their lives. And we're very blessed to be here.
Think about Shane, if you're out there listening right now. Have you ever had a child that is not feeling well at home? Imagine if that child had a devastating disease and you do feel helpless. And we don't want anyone to feel like that. We're trying to find answers to these diseases and finding cures. That's what they're doing here at Riley with all the research that's going on. And you can help right now by just picking up a telephone. 888-745-3954. We're looking for Miracle Makers, $15 a month. I'll help patients like Hailey, who's doing really well. You look so good. What's the outcome now? You're 4 years past all this. We all done now?
She had a checkup 2 weeks ago. We still have another year and a half of being monitored. But 2 weeks ago, for the very first time, the doctor looked at me with all of her blood counts and said, there's nothing on this sheet that's not normal. She, for the very first time, all of her counts, all of her levels were normal. It's pretty amazing. It's
gotta be a good feeling.
4 years I've been waiting to hear.
Oh, good. 888-745-3954. Make those phones ring, because they are not ringing right now. Miracle Makers, 888-745-3954.
That's 888-745-3954. The next 5 Miracle Makers are for you. Yeah. 888-745-3954. Just $15 a month. That's 50 cents a day. 888-745-3954.
As the Riley Radiothon continues.